The views and opinions expressed in this podcast are those of the individual co-host and do not reflect the official policy or position of the Firearms Radio Network and or their employers. Viewer discretion is advised. This is especially true on our live shows.
Broadcast for shooters, hunters, and gun enthusiasts. This is the Firearms Radio Network. The bandwidth for this episode of This Week in Guns is sponsored by Patriot Patch Company. PatriotPatch.co.
Welcome to This Week in Guns. This show is brought to you by the Firearms Radio Network and Patriot Patch Company.
And this show offers commentary on the latest firearms industry news, information, and buzz. I'm your host, Sean Heron, and it's my pleasure to introduce our guest tonight. First up, one of our favorites that we've ever had. In fact, we've got two of them tonight. The creator of the Mayday Safety app, Rocket FFL, Rocket CCW, best-selling author of the Long Range Shooting Handbook, host of multiple podcasts, husband, father, and much more. We have Ryan Kleckner. Welcome back, buddy.
Dude, I am tired just listening to that. Thanks for having me.
Makes me tired reading it. And then, to follow on with that, we've got firearms educator, national director of training for A Girl and a Gun, director of training at House Gun Shop. She's a COO, and host of Trigger Time TV. Tatiana Whitlock, welcome back.
Thank you. Glad to be back.
Glad to be back. So you're COO of somewhere else now, right?
Actually, I'm an account strategist at a market firm in San Diego, Fidelitas Development.
Fidelitas Development. Okay.
They're doing a phenomenal job of working within the community.
Sorry, you cut out. Say that one more time.
Fidelitas Development is the name of the agency.
All right. Very, very cool. Welcome back to both of you. First off, I want to talk about the Patriot Patch Company. Go check them out. And if you collect patches, I promise you will love them. PatriotPatch.co is the place to do that. And let's get right into it with man arrested at JFK with a gun concealed in a DVD player. And this one, I saw the pictures before I read the article, and I was pretty impressed. This was some very clever thinking by someone who clearly doesn't critically think as a hobby. Ryan, I'm going to start off with you. Did you see this? What the heck?
I did. And you know how they caught him?
No.
Nobody uses a DVD player anymore. They were like, wait a minute. Everybody uses Netflix. What's this DVD player thing?
That's so weird. And he was trying to take it on his carry-on luggage, like to get it past for whatever reason. I mean, he was going to Mexico.
I thought he was trying to do that. Yeah, that's why. Yeah. Just
I understand, but clearly not going to work.
I'm surprised TSA caught it. TSA fails their own tests all the time. So good for TSA.
Yeah, maybe something a little less obvious than a DVD player. Maybe a VCR next time, guys.
Yeah, or 8-track. At least that would have been ironic.
Yeah, exactly. Then you could get your hipster credibility. Tatiana, what do you think?
I got to give him points for creativity. I mean, we're almost talking about an obsolete piece of technology there at the DVD player. So way to confuse the millennials, PSA.
Oh, it's a disaster. That was worth mentioning. Next up is kind of a big one. The NRA is suing Ackerman McQueen over a lack of transparency in billing. We saw an article come out, the tale of woe as the inner workings of the NRA are revealed, and what that article represented was just literally all of the kind of backdoor dealing and nepotism and just all kinds of crazy stuff, and people being paid extreme amounts for not a whole lot of extreme work. And it's a little bit of a disaster. I think the NRA now has sued Ackerman McQueen as maybe a little bit of pushback on some of the bad publicity they've been getting for some of the sweetheart deals that have been going on. And, it is a little bit of a disaster. Then Adam Kraut put out an article over at AmmoLand, and I thought it was really good. He was demanding that the board of directors members that are involved with the audit and finance committee immediately resign. Wayne LaPierre immediately resigned for allowing this stuff to go on under his leadership. I think that's all extremely reasonable to immediately fire Ackerman McQueen and bring all PR and marketing back under the umbrella of the NRA instead of someone called it right here. A board member actually called them the vampire vendor. And yeah, it's just, I think it's a big deal. And Tatiana, I'm going to start off with you. What do you think?
It is a huge undertaking. I mean, Ackerman McQueen has been involved in every facet of everything we've seen from the NRA, from the women's programs, the NRA TV, all of the radio, all of the purses and personalities. I mean, I've been a part of the NRA New Energy program and NRA Women's Network, and I've worked directly with the folks at Ackerman McQueen to film the tips and tactics segments, the interview pieces, some highlight and feature pieces over the years. And they're a very professional outfit to work with as an outsider coming in. But they've been so involved with the NRA at a decision-making level as far as what the branding and the messaging has been. It's going to be a massive program to return that in-house. It's going to take an enormous team and a enormous effort to rein it in, get it under control, and revitalize some of those programs, because some of them were going really well. They were doing really good work. Some of them not so much, but I mean, there was a huge volume and body of work that's been created over the years.
Yeah, it's definitely a huge undertaking. I think personally, I think Ackerman McQueen is a big problem. But then again, I live in a different world where I don't respond to the mass emails and the mass postal service letters and the telephone calls where they threaten that, we're going to lose our gun rights if I don't take action right now and give $20. And, the people who donate are the people who are funding a lot of those efforts and things like that. I do donate to the NRA. I'm a member of the NRA. I donate to the ILA. But, I do that because I think it's the right thing to do, because it's the thing that I want to do, but not because their doom and gloom marketing gets to me. Ryan, what do you think?
Ackerman McQueen is scary, man. They are uber powerful. They are the NRA. So to hear the NRA suing them is kind of silly. I think it's so blurred in some areas where Ackerman McQueen stops, and Mercury, which is who they went to as another vendor, but really was just Ackerman McQueen, and the NRA. I mean, some of these articles, if you read them, they talk about how the NRA is mad at Ackerman McQueen because Ackerman McQueen won't tell the NRA how much their president, Oliver North, gets paid.
Yeah.
Like, soak that in. That's how much Ackerman McQueen runs everything, is they pay the NRA's president and won't even let the NRA know how much they're paying their own president. That blows my mind. So I'm glad to see this happen. I'm glad to see some stuff come to light. I wholly support Adam Kraut. I'm not one of those people that says the NRA needs to be gone, but I think the NRA needs a major overhaul. And if this is the start of that, awesome. But we're a family here, and I sure am happy to call out a family member and help them get on the right track. But I don't know if doing it publicly, so the anti-gunners get to see all of our dirty laundry, is a good idea. But it is what it is.
Yeah, it's definitely tough because, the board of directors and the executive leadership of the NRA, I mean, there's just so many levels. This is, 5D chess. And at the same time, I want to see the NRA improve.
Yeah.
It's time to connect with the next generation.
Yeah, you have board members that don't show up to meetings calling Adam Kraut the enemy. Right.
Yeah.
That's why we're here. I mean, look at any other business, we would have had the board fired by now, right? They would have a duty to the shareholders. Well, we are the shareholders of the NRA, and just absolutely not running the organization properly at all. Let's fix it.
Yeah, I agree. It definitely needs to be fixed. We could go on for hours and hours just reading the article in the New Yorker, which was provided by the Trace. And I get that they're, anti-gun rights, or at least very left politically leaning. So yeah, I don't know. I read all these articles, and I read them multiple times just to make sure that I was absorbing it all. I checked in with some people, and it seems like this information that was in the New Yorker article or the Trace article is accurate as far as they can tell. I know that Jeff Knox, who is Neil Knox's son, wrote an article over at AmmoLand, and it is definitely a quandary. It is a big deal, and I think we're going to see some real shakeups going on with the NRA, because clearly they borrowed a ton of money from internal accounts. They've exhausted a $25 million credit line. They've taken from the retirement account. They borrowed from the retirement accounts, and things need to improve. They're definitely feeling the pinch, I think. And I stand by my declaration that we need the NRA. They're the only lobbying group in town for us, and I don't want to see them die. I want to see them strong.
Yep, agreed.
Mm-hmm.
Next up, West Virginia Assemblyman introduces bill to allow marijuana smokers to keep their guns. So that headline, it's a little bit non-perfect, I would say, but it comes to us from guns.com. And this is just basically saying that even if a state allows medical marijuana, like we do here in Colorado, we also allow recreational, but this is specifically for medical marijuana. by having that, by using that, by taking part in that, it makes you illegal at a federal level because it's still a Schedule 1 narcotic. And that basically disallows you from owning guns, even though in Colorado it would be legal for someone to smoke medical marijuana or take cannabis or whatever, however they ingest it. But still, they shouldn't be allowed to own a gun because it would be lying on the 4473. So anyway, this would basically allow that if they're taking medical marijuana, it would allow them to own a firearm and not put them in jeopardy of federal crime, things like that. Ryan, why don't you start us off?
I think that's wrong. There's a big states federal right issue here, and we have an interesting dynamic in our country where the federal government is not superior to the states, like a lot of people think. We're supposed to have, states and federal government are supposed to be kind of co-equal partners here, but the states do not get to legally, black and white for real, just overrule a federal law. And this is the same to me as any state coming up and saying, we're going to introduce a bill that nullifies a federal law, because that's essentially what he's doing. The federal law doesn't just say you can't purchase a gun if you use marijuana on a 4473. It says you cannot possess any gun or ammunition, and empty brass cases are included in that definition. So if you use marijuana or in possession of marijuana, you can't have an empty brass case. That's a federal law, guys. I don't know what this does. I think it's going to set people up for trouble. That's why, if you can tell, I seem a little bothered by it, is someone's going to rely on this and they're going to still go to federal prison anyway. And that's not fair.
So actually, I think I did introduce this as a West Virginia, but he is a West Virginia congressman. So he introduced this in this as a federal bill, right?
Oh, my fault. I'll completely take everything back.
Okay, perfect. I was like, I think we've talked about this before, and I think the headline may have been a little bit misleading, but would you agree though, that as a federal thing that this, I don't know, I don't even want to ask it like that. What do you think about having this as a federal addendum or amendment?
I think marijuana should be completely decriminalized. I think it should be completely allowed and therefore should be taken off the prohibited person.
All right. Makes a lot of sense. Tatiana.
We have this happen at our gun shop up in Maine, and we've got folks who come in and they will go through the process, and then they'll put their ID and their medical marijuana card on the table. And then I've got a bunch of guys that are standing around behind the counter going, okay, well, now we have a quandary here, and now we are not able to complete this transaction with you. Now we are aware that you have basically lied on the 4473, and here's what this means for us, and here's why we can't proceed. So, there does need to be some clarification, and it's a messy one. There are certainly individuals who come into the shop that have put that card down, and you look at them and you go, all of my internal profiling and red flags are waving here. So that little card's not the reason why our shop is going to decline you from our choice of the fact that you smell like alcohol too. So, there's a lot of factors in play there, but that one component has caused a lot of trouble for a lot of people. And I don't see it getting any easier unless the states and the federal government figure it out.
Yeah. And I mean, them putting the card on there, what are they specifically trying to accomplish, except for basically immediately making you stand up and be like, well, hey, now that I know this, I can't legally sell you a firearm.
I don't know. It's some special campers. I'm not entirely sure.
I get that question from clients.
Process at that point,
Yeah.
So some of my FFL clients will have that problem where you don't have a driver's license that matches your current residence address.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
You can use a government issued ID to supplement, and they go, oh, marijuana card's government issued. Can I use this? And my answer back to clients has been, actually, yes, that is a government issued ID. And yes, you absolutely can use that to supplement your address. However, now you can't buy a gun.
Right.
Yeah. It's definitely a quandary. If a state allows it, and yeah, it's tough. So we'll see if this actually gets anywhere. This is introduced by U.S. Rep. Alexander Mooney from West Virginia. We'll see if it actually goes anywhere. I am with you, Ryan, and I think that, decriminalize completely. But I will also say that I don't think it's been a great thing in Colorado. But still, I always err on the side of freedom over inconvenience any day. Next up, Colorado Supreme Court to hear magazine capacity case. So for the people that don't know, in 2013, we actually, this was right after the Aurora Theater shooting at the Batman movie. They pushed through a bunch of knee-jerk gun restriction. And one of those things was restrictions on magazines over 15 rounds. The sheriffs sued. That didn't go anywhere. We actually recalled 2 senators, including the Speaker of the House for the state of Colorado, or the Speaker. John Morse and Angela Giron were the 2 that were actually recalled here. But, unfortunately, and I always say this, I always say activism and advocacy and lobbying are 2 things. And when all those other things fail, litigation. Well, litigation hasn't gotten us very far because it's now 6 years later and we still have this 15-round magazine capacity limit. There is a case that has finally been taken on and accepted by the Colorado Supreme Court. And I don't know, I am a little bit nervous about it, but also a little bit, encouraged, because Ryan Kleckner has often told me that, when the Supreme Court takes something on, it's because there might be an opportunity for them to overturn it or rule in the opposite direction. Ryan, why don't you tell me, I know you've told me something similar to that.
Yes, I'm referring to the U.S. Supreme Court, though. So sometimes, state level Supreme Courts will take it just because of a legal process. It's not necessarily because they want to overturn it. So I don't know. I mean, it's good. How awesome would it be if it got overturned? It's also bad if they, supported it and then just doubled down on the ban. But I think it's a worthwhile risk to take. If someone were to ask me strategically, well, does that mean you shouldn't do the lawsuit then? No, do the lawsuit, because worst case scenario, you're back where you are now.
Yeah. Tatiana?
Well, we're seeing it everywhere. And I mean, it's encroaching into New England, and it is a knee-jerk reaction. So we really do need to have this figured out. And again, California just set an interesting precedent where they changed their minds. And so I think we really do need to standardize the fact that this is not a solution. Limiting the capacity of magazines solves absolutely nothing. So that topic in and of itself is just mind-boggling, that it's still up for debate and discussion, and we're still seeing states adopt arbitrary numbers and metrics to set parameters.
Yeah, one of the organizations here that's filed this said, we think it's a good indicator that not only were our arguments persuasive, that this magazine ban really hasn't done anything to stop crime, and also that the California case, which struck down California's magazine prohibition, has some bearing on our case. But then I did a little bit of research into the Colorado Supreme Court, and it's 7 justices serving 10-year terms each. We do not elect our Supreme Court justices in Colorado. We elect a group of them, and then the governor has final pick over the ones that we choose as voters. In 2012, the Colorado Supreme Court was ranked as the 16th most liberal court in the nation. We had a Democratic governor, Hickenlooper, that appointed 5 of the 7 sitting justices, and a Republican Senator Ritter that appointed 2 of those. So when I read that, I stopped feeling really good about this and got a little bit freaked out, to be perfectly honest. Next story. Florida Supreme Court upholds Sheriff Israel's removal from office. This has to do with Parkland. We've talked about this on the show, and it's not necessarily gun related, but it is something here. So after it was found that they had multiple calls that they didn't act on, and that there was, some leadership issues, the governor of Florida had removed Sheriff Scott Israel from Broward County, and he filed it, and he went to the Supreme Court, and they said that it was within the purview of the governor. Israel's attorney said, with today's ruling, local elected officials now need to be aware of the potential for governor overreach when discharging their duties. But, here's the thing. It says the heat on Sheriff Israel increased after it emerged that the sheriff's office received and disregarded calls in 2017 and 2016 warning that this kid who carried out the murders was a potential school shooter. Deputies also had about 20 contacts with this person as a juvenile, and mostly due to arguments with his now deceased mother. Israel said none of those contacts warranted an arrest. Law enforcement members of the state commission investigating the shooting have agreed with that conclusion, and I have read that entire commission report as well, and they do definitely agree with the conclusion that none of those warranted an arrest. But now this is it. The Senate of Florida now has this in their hands, and they decide whether to remove him permanently or to reinstate him over the governor's objections. Tatiana, what are your thoughts on all this?
It's a horrific event, and it's going to be something that calls more attention and scrutiny to the system that we have in place. And because the children were involved, because it was I don't even have a word for it. You're going to have, and we all do, we all want some resolution to this and someone to blame. So, this to me is one of those things where if this is a system that requires as far as bigger topic, that's the bigger question in place. Otherwise, we really do need to adhere to our protocols and procedures that we have in place so that we revisit that. I don't know, perhaps this seems to be if it's outside of the realm of what we would normally do.
Tatiana, I'm so sorry. You cut out for most of that. Can you repeat it? Can you hear me?
While she's working that out, let me just say, I think it's great that we give more access to the voters, Sean. I think the problem is if you don't allow the governor to do something, like something to a sheriff, well, then you're not giving the voters as much ability to control who they want to be governed by. And more transparency, more control, I think is a lot better.
Yeah. Tatiana, do you want to do that again? It cut out. Kenny will edit it together to where it makes sense. Are you there?
Are you guys back?
Yeah. Can you hear me?
You got all crunchy there.
Can you hear me now? Sorry for the tech issues, folks. Can you hear me now? Ryan, can you see if she can hear you again?
Tatiana, can you hear me?
Okay, can you hear me?
Now.
Okay, cool. Okay, you're
Yes.
back. So you cut out on all that. Can you just repeat your opinion on this story?
Sure. Because that event was so horrific, it's going to call the public to demand action. We're going to need to demand to see some change, some difference, someone to blame, some resolution. And while this isn't necessarily a witch hunt, it is something that's obviously putting this individual on the spot at a much higher level. I think the bigger conversation here is the system by which we hold these officials to a higher standard something that needs to be revisited? And if those standards are what need to be revisited and reclassified as a result of our experience through this, then maybe it's time to do so. However, we do have a protocol in place by which we hold officials to those standards. And if that is the case, then we need to adhere to that. But again, because it was such a horrific and tragic experience, that emotional response and that need for resolution is going to be there. And so I think that's why we're seeing this.
All right, good stuff, guys. Let's move on into the next news. And Ryan, I'm going to let you just run away with this because you brought it to my attention and it's pretty crazy.
Yeah, this really grinds my gears. So I need to understand more about it. So I'm actually just learning this too. So let's discuss it. Is what we found out is Arizona DPS found a safety issue with their FN pistols. So apparently Arizona DPS was using FNS pistols. They figured out that in a certain condition, the guns will fire when they're jostled from any direction. I mean, they have an awesome video they put together of it, and they're taking light hammer taps to the top of the slide, to the side. They even show an officer just taking it and hitting the magazine with the palm of his hand as if he was just trying to positively seat the magazine, and that causes the gun to go off. This is a huge issue, and what causes it is when the slide is barely out of battery. I mean, it looks like 1/8 of an inch or less. You saw the video, Sean.
I did.
You agreed? Yeah, it's barely out of battery, and you try to pull the trigger. I take that back. And you do pull the trigger, trying to fire the gun doesn't go off. Well, that's good. Guns aren't supposed to fire out of battery. However, on these FNS pistols, apparently that then sets you up into this really dangerous condition that will allow the gun to fire when it's jostled in any direction hard enough. So they even said that putting it in the holster could be enough to make it fire after it got in that condition. So that's the scary part, is not that it doesn't fire out of battery, but that now you got this magic condition set up where, oh my God, your gun could fire at any time. So I went and looked at this some more, and Arizona DPS found this in August of 2018. And they put out this video to their own officers in August of 2018. And they told some department in Baltimore about it, and the department in Baltimore also stopped using the FN pistols because they're dangerous. But I don't know about you, Sean. I haven't heard about this. It's been almost a year.
No, Nothing. I have heard nothing. When you told me about it before the show, it's the first I have heard of it, and this is big.
Yes, this is huge. Any angle, not just like a certain angle, any angle. I don't know. It just scares me the gun can be in that condition. So I looked up on FN's website and I found just before this podcast started that they do have a service bulletin out there that says you can get it fixed for free if you want, but it's voluntary. And I don't know how long that service bulletin was up there because there's no date, but I went and looked at the Wayback Machine, to look at the Internet Archive, and the first crawl of that page was last week. So maybe this was recent. I don't know. I put the details on Gun University if people want to see the video or read about it.
Tatiana, have you heard about this?
No, and that's terrifying. I mean, SIG went through their debacle. That made national news, but I've not heard anything about the FN, and that's almost scarier. That's terrifying. I mean, it's not like you have to drop it at a specific angle. That's not okay.
The instructions actually say if you experience malfunction with your FNS pistol, do not do a tap rack bang.
Yeah, they say specifically to avoid it. And if you watch this video, like anything, if it goes even, and Ryan said an eighth of an inch, I'm like maybe a 16th. Yeah. If it goes out of battery, and I mean, I have pistols sometimes go out of battery when I put them into a holster, just a little bit canted or whatever. And disables the trigger, which is exactly what you want. But for some reason, it puts this in. Ryan, I think you coined the term grenade mode.
Yeah, puts it in the grenade mode. It's about ready to go off. So yeah, I could see that out of battery in a holster. But I've had guns dirty enough. I've ridden a slide too hard with my thumbs before to have it slightly out of battery. Mm-hmm. And again, gun doesn't fire out of battery. That's called a good gun design. But then it goes into this condition where they also said the gun becomes inoperable. So it goes into this condition where you cannot fire it with the trigger anymore. That's also scary for a cop that might be in a gunfight. Yeah. So it renders the gun not shootable by the trigger. I guess that's in that case, you have to remember to smack the gun in any direction to make it shoot the bad guy.
Yeah. And I mean, look, I'm not like stuff happens and, we see this stuff. We saw it with SIG. They escaped, they did the right thing with their voluntary upgrade and people got their guns fixed. And, you don't hear much about that except for if you hang out with me, because I think it makes me laugh. And I talk about it all the time, but this is kind of a big deal. So if you have an FNS, you may want to take a look at this safety bulletin. It's all over at gununiversity.com and the link is in the show notes, but this is a pretty big deal. This is I don't know why I haven't heard of it until now, but thank you, Ryan, for pointing it out.
We'll see where it goes.
18-year-old woman infatuated with Columbine killings kills herself in Colorado on the 20th anniversary of the massacre. So this is in my neck of the woods, about 70 miles north of me, but we had this thing going on last week, I believe it was, where this 18-year-old girl apparently was infatuated with the Columbine murders that happened here quite a while ago. And she flew to Colorado, bought a shotgun, and all of our schools in Denver and the surrounding areas were on lockdown. The FBI and the sheriff's department put out bulletins and saying that they didn't have probable cause to arrest, but that they wanted to question her. So all the schools were closed down. It turns out that she'd been seen in a national park running around in the forest naked with a shotgun and eventually took her own life. But this, I don't know. I have a lot of opinions on this. I'm not a conspiracy theorist. However, I might be starting to become one. But Tatiana, did you see about this at all?
I've been at a Girl in a Gun national conference with 450 women. So it came across my news feed. I was very alarmed to see that come across the news feed, as I think many people were, because we certainly don't need any copycat or, sensationalizing of those types of activities by people who, for whatever motivation, choose to put themselves in the spotlight. But I was relieved to see that it resolved itself.
Yeah.
However sad and, for the human condition that it is, that's that kind of activity that influences such a great body of people. I mean, schools being on lockdown, that's just sheer terror for children and their families. So that one person can create that ripple effect is very alarming. But I mean, hey, we have had experiences here in Maine where there have been very benign, we'll call them air quotes, threats, and the schools have reacted immediately. And as a parent of a child in that school, I cannot fault them an ounce for doing everything within their power to keep those kids safe. So, while it may feel like a lot, hey, whatever they need to do.
Yeah. Ryan, what are your thoughts here?
There's crazy people out there.
Yeah, there's definitely crazy people.
I mean, I'm glad that the situation resolved itself, and I'm glad she didn't try to use a plane or a truck or a bomb.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, I agree. So here's some of the questions I have. I mean, we shut down all of our schools in Denver and the surrounding areas, even
Mhm.
though they said literally in the next sentence that they had no probable cause or anything to arrest or detain, but they wanted to question her. And I'm just
Mhm.
wondering, is this a result of this kind of knee-jerk society that we live in these days? And is it warranted? Is it unwarranted?
I think
I-
Tatiana's right. It's warranted. We're in a
Mhm.
scary time now, and this isn't to blame those evil lawyers, but could you imagine being told there was a risk and they didn't lock down? Or me as a parent, what I would do if my children were hurt because someone didn't take a threat seriously enough?
Yeah.
I think it invites another question, which is, wait a minute, how are our schools not in a condition where strangers just can't get in? They
and
weren't on lockdown in their classrooms; they were on a lockout, which is where
lock
they fixed the perimeter. So school continued as normal, but they locked the perimeter down so people couldn't get in. Shouldn't that be called the day?
Yes, I that was exactly my next point is, what are we doing if we're not actually doing this? If we're not hardening the schools against people like this that may or may not do something, we're clearly not doing it. We need to be doing it.
Yep. What? They all need Mayday safety,
I was actually just getting ready to bring that
and
up.
they could talk with the parents easier too. You could actually communicate with the parents and go, "This is what's going on. Don't freak out." Yeah. Oh well.
Yep. Mayday Safety. It is an app that you've worked on, and it's specifically for stuff like this, right? You want to talk about it real quick?
Sure. It is a free app that can be used all around the world for anybody that allows for location based emergency alerts. And then when schools and churches and businesses use it, they get a dashboard that allows them to manage emergencies. They get to see exactly on a map where somebody needs help. They get to see everyone's status if they're okay or not. It just takes all that chaos and confusion of 20 minutes of a school shooting and gets you all the information you need in a couple seconds. So we're hoping to spread it to more and more schools and churches every day.
All right, good stuff. But yeah, this was kind of interesting. Like I said, it hit close to home because it was, at
Close
home,
to home.
70 miles north of me. And it was kind of a big deal. It turns out she had already committed suicide by the time that they even issued all the news stories and everything like that. But uh, it was interesting. I haven't seen anything about what she actually said that led them to believe that she might do something like that, or if it was just family members. And interesting timing right after the red flag law was signed into effect by our governor here in Colorado.
I was wondering what you meant by conspiracy theory. Now I know what you mean.
Yes,
Mhm.
yes. Kansas pawn shop settles for $2 million in mass shooting case, or Kansas pawn shops insurance company settles for $2 million in mass shooting case. But basically, this was a straw purchase. A girl went in for her prohibited person, boyfriend or husband. He was not allowed to own a firearm. She paid for the firearm with his credit card while saying that the gun was for herself. And the court found that they were liable on $2 million settlement. Tatiana, did you read about this? Did you hear about it?
I have not heard about this one. No, I mean we see that come through our shops here in Maine, and the attempts that happen kind of blatantly. Again, it's one of those. Are you really that not connected with what you're doing to think that we wouldn't see what you're doing or trying to accomplish? So we're very active, and all of the shops up here in Maine are very very active in making sure that people's language is correct and the transactions are correct. And the signs are everywhere. People, this is not a shocker.
Yeah, 100%. Now, Ryan, I know that I saw an online discussion and you were like, "Yep, this is what should have happened. It was a straw purchase. They should have seen it."
Yes. So the Protection of Lawful Commerce and Arms Act, PLACA, protects gun dealers and distributors and manufacturers from being sued for things like this, unless they're negligent. And gun shops, if you do something like this, yeah, you're negligent. You got to be straw purchases. At the heart of a straw purchase is deception. So you've got to be ready to be fooled. And by the way, straw purchases happen and don't get caught every single day. Of course they do. Again, because they're people deceiving. You can't catch everything, but you need to pay attention. I tell all my FFL clients to keep a denied person's log. You'd be surprised how many people the prohibited person will come in and ask about the guns and somehow let the shop know that they're prohibited. And if you got the name or the person's address, you write down what guns they were looking for and their name and address, and watch within the next week, somebody with the same or similar last name or same or similar address will come in trying to buy those exact guns. It's a clue.
Yeah, 100%. So, I mean, I agree with you. I think this is pretty valid. And, while I don't want to see stuff happen like this, I don't want them to do it in the first place. And when they do it, they have to pay the price.
Well, and the firearms industry is the first line of defense against the criminal misuse of those firearms. We have a serious responsibility.
Yeah. So news story came out. Christians in Sri Lanka are targeted with bombs on Easter Sunday. Lots of devastation and bombings and all kinds of other stuff happened across churches and Christian locations. It's pretty nuts. And I know, Ryan, I saw in the notes that you actually had something to say about this. So I'm just going to defer to you right now.
Oh, my comment about this was this needs to be the first thing we talk about. I mean, because the Easter worshipers, as former President Obama and Hillary Clinton recalled them. I don't know if you saw that. Did you see that at all, Sean?
Yes, I did see
I've never heard the term Easter worshipers, and they both came out with that phrase. And then I loved seeing the juxtaposition of Hillary Clinton's quote about the New Zealand shootings, and then someone took a line and corrected everything to Christians.
Yes.
And just to show how it's amazing that over 3 times the people are killed, but it doesn't get the media coverage near the media coverage that New Zealand got. And 1, it wasn't firearms, so it doesn't fit the narrative. And 2, it's really scary and sad to say, but I don't think it was as unexpected. I think people went, yeah, saw that coming. So it did make the news. It's a horrible world that we're in if that's the case.
I agree. Tatiana, what do you think?
I agree. I agree with that. It's the horrible world we're in. If we're not sharing the tragedies equally and we're picking and choosing which ones we want to sensationalize.
Yeah, because if this was committed with a pistol or a AR-15 style rifle or any other kind of rifle, this would have been everywhere, everything. We would have celebrities in this country coming out and saying, "See, we have to do something about this." Even when it happened in New Zealand, they were coming out with that. But bombings that, like you said it, Ryan, it doesn't fit the narrative.
Correct.
Awful. So my thoughts definitely go out to them. Sure, everyone else. I'm Offended has a ton of content tonight. And first off, Brady Group is trying to tie gun rights groups to Second Amendment sanctuary movement. This comes to us from AMOLand, and this is the Brady gun control group that we've heard about. We don't hear about them as much because, Every Time for Gun Safety is the new gun control group du jour. But they're filing Freedom of Information Act requests with several Nevada counties saying that the sheriffs there have gone rogue, and they're trying to point it to gun groups, etc. First off, is this even freaking illegal? And if I saw that the NRA was tied to trying to get these to be Second Amendment sanctuary cities, I would give them a high five and a donation. Tatiana, have you heard about this? What do you think?
Oh, man. Just the fact that we're having this conversation about sanctuary cities for the Second Amendment just blows my mind. Like, this is the United States of America. We have this awesome document. How is this even a topic?
Yeah, I agree. And why would they be trying to tie unless there might be some kind of legality or something? But if NRA or Gun Owners of America or Firearms Policy Coalition, if they're pushing for the Second Amendment sanctuary cities, I'm totally down.
I think yes, but I agree with you. I'm completely blown away that this is a necessity.
Yeah, I agree. It's happening. There's been a few cities in Colorado, Nevada, New Mexico, just like all over the United States. Ryan, what do you think?
Turnabout is fair play. They want sanctuary cities for other things, and I guess we could do this. I think all sanctuary cities should be gone. I think we should fight unjust laws, but yeah, they can't take it in one case and not like it in others.
Yeah, I agree. I just thought it was kind of interesting, and I'm not sure exactly what they're trying to get at here, but I think it's a good thing if they are doing it. Next up is Washington Freedom of Information Act request just an attempt to dox gun owners, and doxing is exposing someone's private information such as name, address, telephone number, things like that, so that people can, do whatever they're going to do. But someone in Washington state, 2 people, in fact, have filed a Freedom of Information Act request to get the names and addresses of residents that have turned in their bump stocks to police to create a public searchable database of these former owners. One of them was gotten in touch with, and he said that he's a gun supporter, a Second Amendment supporter, and then he wants to get this information so that he can make sure that the police are not storing too much information or doing anything outside of their purview. And the other one seems to be a fake name, and their reason for doing it was to create an online searchable database. But you can see that this would be a big problem for anyone that turned in those bump stocks, because, then if they had a bump stock, they're very likely gun owners, and a nice searchable overlay on Google Maps would be a very in my opinion, bad thing. It's actually happened before, and it was
Well, and they're keeping lists of these people. You need to forward this to Aaron, Sean.
yes, exactly.
Registration leads to confiscation.
Yes, 100%. This is bad. The Washington State Patrol sent out a letter informing bump stock owners that they received this request, and unless they're court ordered, they're not going to provide it. And that day was it is April 26th. There's 2 more days. The show will come out tomorrow, where it will be 1 more day. And this is awful, in my opinion. Like, this gives you no reason to turn in anything if that data can be used to then find you, locate you, and for people to do what they will. Tatiana, what do you think?
Witch hunt. Do we need any more of these? I mean, we've experienced this before with the publication or the couple places it actually happened with the publication of the names and addresses of people with concealed carry permits. This is a serious violation of people's privacy. We're not looking to see what prescription medications you have in your home. This is not okay. It's very scary and very dangerous, putting people's lives and families at risk. And I think it's extremely irresponsible.
Speaking of the turnabout as fair play, I mean, would they want a FOIA request for anyone that's visited a Planned Parenthood or something like that? It's no, we have privacy issues here.
Yeah. How would they feel if we did a Freedom of Information Act for people that are vegan or, do CrossFit? It would be bad.
You wouldn't have to do that. Vegans that do CrossFit tell you.
I love the softball. You knocked it out of the park. I love it. This next story, it annoys me more than almost any other one. Minneapolis mayor bans police from effective training. This comes to us from Defense Maven or Blue Lives Matter. But he has actually said that no one in the police force may attend fear-based or warrior-style training. Specifically talks about Cooper's Killology. And at the very end, it says, courses like this reinforce the thinking that everyone's out to get police officers. Police Executive Research Forum Executive Director Chuck Wexler said specifically, it teaches officers if you hesitate, you could lose your life. It's the exact opposite of the way many police chiefs are going. But people had attended a class that worked on de-escalation techniques and survival skills, and they learned about pre-attack indicators and anatomy of force incidents and combat efficiency and perceptual distortions in combat. And now the chief and the mayor, they're coming out and saying that's not the way we want, our officers to go. And oh my gosh, Tatiana, start off with you.
Well, anytime you start saying that we're going to limit our law enforcement first responders access to training is not okay in my book. And it is the multitude of perspectives and exposure that we are able to find opportunities for these folks to be able to get that is paramount. I mean, the training at a base minimum level is not adequate. So any agency or group or individual willing to go and invest and put in the time with a qualified individual, especially anybody, I mean, we're criticizing Cooper. Okay, he's kind of a legend. Let's not go any bigger here, because that's kind of the top of the food chain. So it just speaks to how those officials don't truly understand what is being accomplished and attained in those periods of instruction. And that's upsetting. That's a big void and a very big gap and missing link in the chain that unfortunately will put more people at risk because they don't have access to knowledge that's readily available. I mean, walk into TACCON. All of those conversations are swirling around for days, and the volume of information that's out there is immense. Look at what we have through the Force Science Institute. There's so much information. So to limit a first responders access to a 2-day class, which is just going to be an eye-opening experience, it will not reprogram their brain. It'll be an eye-opening experience where they will gain some new tools to do their job better. Limiting that is just a crime.
I agree. And I'll even say, I'll go one step further. They're disallowing them from taking it on their own time. If they do that, they're no longer employable by Minneapolis police. Ryan, thoughts?
I think this is a great thing.
I don't believe you.
So when I worked for the NSSF, I went to the IACP conference, the International Association of Chiefs of Police. And I set up the NSSF booth, and I had a couple of don't lie for the other guy stuff that we already talked about. Tatiana already referred to, the signs in the stores and some flyers. And I was heckled or harassed the entire show.
What?
And it was because these chiefs of police were overwhelmingly liberal. So the chiefs were anti-gun liberal. And I had no idea until I got there. And I started, texting some people back at the NSSF, like, oh yeah, the chiefs are the anti-gunners that don't like this kind of stuff. That's not the same as the actual sergeants and lieutenants and things like that. So I'm not surprised that the chiefs don't want this. They're politicians, not necessarily officers.
Yeah, which is weird because they're appointed by mayors, whereas sheriffs actually are politicians and are elected by voters.
Ha, yeah.
So yeah, I don't get it, but this is crazy to me. I see Minneapolis having a severe, really difficult time getting police officers and keeping and retaining police officers, because when you take away their ability to take that extra action, and a lot of these guys, I know a lot of cops that go out and take training on their own because they want to go home to their families. And when you tell them that you're not allowed to do stuff like that, I mean, pre-violence indicators, you can't take training that talks about things like that. Or
Well,
even,
maybe this is a note to us as the industry. Maybe, I'm not saying they're right. Maybe we take this as a, hey, maybe we should rebrand some of what we talk about or how we phrase our courses, because I could see how even though I love our police, I'm still a bit of a libertarian in some areas, don't want to equivocate police to military. I like police being different than military, and maybe calling them warrior killing weekend may not be a good idea. Maybe we call it advanced carbine fundamentals. Maybe we talk about, defensive de-escalation. So the training's great, but at least we should ask ourselves, what do you think, Sean?
I think you have a point there, but I'll also say that they don't specifically say, it's just fear-based warrior style training. So I think even Carbine 1 would probably go against that. It's basically disallowing them from approaching training outside of what is mandated and provided by the department.
I think we need to have our lawsuits go the other way. Heaven forbid an officer gets hurt or a innocent civilian gets hurt because an officer didn't have enough training. I know this would never happen, but I wish it would. That if that happened, that this chief got sued.
I think that would be a great thing. Still shocked at that story. I had to read it twice just because. New Jersey governor wants to implement Jim Crow laws. This comes to us from Breitbart. I agree. They want to make it now. It's pretty inexpensive to get. Let's see. A firearms ID card costs $5. Permit to own a firearm is $2. Permit to carry costs $20. This politician, the governor Phil Murphy, is saying that he wants it to be a firearms ID card $100, owner's permit $50, and a carry permit $400. So they're adding qualifications that you have to have the money to do something to exercise a right. I think that's always bad news, Ryan.
Well, as long as my voting pencil is $100 and my voter registration card is $75, right? If you change this to any other right that we have,
it's crazy.
It's absurd, right? And it also supports gun control. Or the original gun control in America was based in racism, was based in trying to keep former slaves from being able to have guns. Here it is.
I agree. Tatiana, what if your computer costs $3,000? Well, wait, you have an Apple, it does. But I mean, what if it costs $6,000?
Let's not go there. Let's not go there. Let's not go there. Yeah, no, it's welcome to England and New Jersey. It doesn't shock me that that's what I'm hearing coming out of those states. I mean, New England is in a battered part of the country right now, and it is a lot of small individual states that are following suit. California, backed by special interest monies that are largely coming out of New York. And so we are going to see the continued erosion of these things through small little, death by 1,000 cuts is what it feels like living up in this part of the world. So it's not shocking at all. Obviously, I think it's ridiculous and unwarranted and unnecessary, but not surprising.
Yeah, it's annoying. This kind of stuff, like Jim Crow laws and laws that disallow, people that don't have a lot of money from exercising their rights, especially if self-defense, this stuff really gets to me because I have a lot of people come through classes and have seen a lot of people come through other people's classes that don't have a lot of money. I did a force-on-force and medical training with a school district, and one of the gym teacher brought a high point because that's what he had, because that's what he could afford. And I was like, you know what? I'm gonna spend extra time. I'm gonna make sure you know how to use it. I'm gonna make sure it works well. And it's going to be great, but to disallow him to have that naturally given right of self-defense because he couldn't afford anything better than that, it really annoys me. It really bugs me.
Yeah. Now, was your training fear-based?
Of course it was. I mean, why else would I do it?
Have you seen him? He's scary. He looks scary.
Okay.
It's the shirt, so it just screams warrior culture,
It's the fact that my hat is covered in green ketchup. I'm terrifying if you're a cheeseburger. Next up, we've got Kamala Harris vows executive order on guns if elected president. I say thank you, Donald Trump, for this. and she's running, she's running for president.
You're right. Yeah.
Hey, sorry, that's the way it is. She said if Congress fails to pass comprehensive legislation in her first 100 days in the Oval Office, that she will unilaterally use executive orders to close the loophole and have universal background checks. And she also wants a complete assault weapon ban as well. She says that we need reasonable gun safety laws in this country, starting with UBCs and renewal of the assault weapons ban, but they have failed to have the courage to act, referring to existing politicians. And I say, wow, the precedent has now been set, and this is the ridiculousness that we have to live with. Tatiana, what do you think? Tatiana,
you cut out so much. I had no idea what the story.
Jeez, I'm sorry. Kamala Harris wants to. She said that she will use executive order to pass comprehensive gun legislation if she becomes the president. If Congress doesn't do it in the first 100 days of office.
Yeah, I don't see that as a possibility. It sounds like a very nice attempt at a marketing pitch for somebody who's vying for the seat and the throne, but I don't see how that's actually possible to make that happen. It would debase the country. It would tear the country apart. And I do not think that that is a responsible thing for a president to do, period, especially in an attempt to do that in the first 100 days. So, everybody wants fluffy kittens and unicorns, but the reality is we are a nation, and we're going to be voting in a president that hopefully represents the will of the nation. And we so far have had a pretty good, strong voice that says, listen, we are responsible Americans and responsible gun owners. So I don't think that is going to work.
I hope.
But she can say whatever she wants to say because,
yeah. And I hope not. But I feel like precedent has been set now with executive orders of the last two presidents. Ryan, do you have thoughts on this?
I agree with you. I mean, Trump just said, let's get rid of bump stocks. Congress wouldn't do anything, so he acted. He's just shown that people will go along with the president skipping the Constitution and not waiting for Congress to make laws. It scares me. It's easy to joke and say, is this how you want civil war? Because that's how you get civil war. But I know it's not going to be. That's easy to say. But no, this is going to be more feel-good legislation that does nothing. Not even legislation. More feel-good rules that do nothing. And thankfully, I don't think she has a chance to win, so we don't have to worry about it.
Yeah, I don't think she does either. But, just saying stuff like that, really, it's
going to be good for gun sales.
You know what? It really will.
Buy your magazines and any extra AR-15s you want now.
Yeah, absolutely. All right. The next one, we're going to move into our full-on news segment, just the crazy stuff. And Ryan, I see you marked one. Court rules chalking tires for parking enforcement is unconstitutional. I have actually been a victim of this, by the way. So what do you think?
I think it's awesome. I've actually this is maybe 6 months ago. I was sitting downtown looking at a cop marking the tires and going, how is this allowed? I've never understood how they were allowed to actually put marks on your personal property and then come back and give you a ticket based on that. What if you moved? What if you left, went around the block and parked 4 spots forward? They would still give you a ticket because a mark of chalk is there. It never made sense to me. So I'm glad that we have some restrictions on search and seizures. The court said that, and this is true, a police officer cannot trespass on you, which means do something they're not normally allowed to do, and then that be the only reason they know you committed the crime. So, good. They should stop doing it.
Yeah, I agree. Tatiana, what do you think?
I agree. I don't think it has to be a complicated issue. The car analogy is exactly spot on.
Yeah, I agree. I'm like, this is crazy that this had to go this far, but yeah, it's unconstitutional and good on them is what I say. All right, guys, that'll do it for the news stories. I just want to quickly say that this is the 300th episode of This Week in Guns. And that is truly awesome. I haven't been here for all of them. I want to thank Jake Challen for starting the show and the Firearms Radio Network. I want to thank Kenny Ortega for making sure that this show continued to 300 episodes and beyond. This show literally would not exist without Kenny's hard work, putting together stories, collecting stories, editing, uploading, and all that other great stuff that he does. I don't think he gets enough credit, but he definitely should. So if you're out there and you see Kenny Ortega, give him a high five, buy him a beer, and give him a pat on the back for keeping this all going. Before I go, I always like to ask you guys kind of what you've been up to and where people can find you. And Tatiana, I know that you're running around like a crazy person, just doing tons and tons of things. But why don't you share some of that stuff with us so people can follow and keep up with all the great work that you're doing?
Absolutely. I made it really hard to find me online. It's TatianaWhitlock.com. There's a new website coming out the end of May. So that's going to have all kinds of new fun stuff and new opportunities to get in touch with me and work with me. Picking up some more writing this year, which is something I put on pause for a bit, but published a book through the A Girl and a Gun organization. I've never done that before, and it was actually a lot of fun. I didn't hate my life writing it. So we'll be putting out some more materials that are available to the general public. As well as running a spring into summer sale for training events for the rest of 2019. It's a teaser. It'll go through the end of May as well on my website. In addition to all that goodness, the A Girl and a Gun organization continues to grow and thrive. We launched our inaugural class of certified A Girl and a Gun trainers. We had 15 women complete and pass the program. We did set the bar high, and we did set a high standard, and we did have 15 individuals complete that program. So that is a huge accomplishment for the organization, and they are incredible brand ambassadors for the organization and the female firearms community as far as being educators go. So very proud of them and that body of work. And in addition to that, Fidelitas Development is the new advertising and marketing agency that I joined shortly after SHOT Show and have been thrilled to be a part of that team. It's fidelitasdevelopment.com, and they are working behind the scenes for some of the larger and top brands within the firearms community. And so we're looking forward to seeing a lot of those folks and enjoying NRA show later this weekend.
Very cool. Can't wait. Hopefully I'll run into you and get to shake your hand in person.
Yes.
It'd be awesome.
Be
Ryan, how about you? What you been up to?
Well, first, you guys need to go buy Tatiana's book. And if it's available on Amazon, you got to use the FRN link to go buy her book and support her. I think that's awesome. I'm up to too much, too busy, trying to chill out a little bit. I actually took all email accounts off my phone. I have like 8 email accounts for business stuff, and I took them off my phone.
What?
I know, because I have too many. Rocket FFL to get your FFLs, and for all the FFLs out there that want simple ATF compliance with video lessons by me, come check it out. The ATF compliance course is up and running. You get a subscription to that, or getting your CCWs, or my books. But Mayday Safety, you want to get it all, go to Gun University. Gun University is my new hub. It's ugly still. It's getting better every day. Check it out, gununiversity.com. I appreciate it.
Awesome. And all the other stuff, Mayday Safety, Long Range Shooters Handbook. Long range. What I said that wrong, right?
There's only one my kid's gun safety book. Yeah. Gun University will have it all. So I'm going to start just saying go there, and I'll send everyone away.
All right. I love it. That's awesome. And, if you are listening to this, come to the Firearms Radio Network listener meetup. It's going to be Saturday, April 27th at 6:30 p.m. at Sun King Brewery. It's going to be a good time. Going to have a lot of different hosts there from the different shows on the network. We're going to have some giveaways and just, lots of companies there that are supporting this event. And, by effect, you, the listener, and we want to hang out with you. We want to give you a chance to win some cool stuff. And honestly, just to meet the people out there that are listening to these shows every single week and making the Firearms Radio Network what it is, the family that it is. So thank you, Tatiana. And thank you, Ryan, very much for being here. Thank you to Kenny Ortega. But most of all, thank you to the people who listen to these shows. We truly, truly appreciate it. We hope to see you in Indianapolis. And if not, we will talk to you next week. I promise.